think that the big fallout between Farage, Elon Musk and, by default, Tommy, isn't anything to do with those individuals specifically. I think the idea of a fallout has nothing to do with those big names. I think this whole fight is actually about something very different, something much bigger than anyone else, and it's about justice. And I just want to explain it from different perspectives, if I may. Having spent over 5 years on the road across America, when I was effectively ejected from my own country, couldn't live here safely, couldn't be near my family safely, whatever, I spent a lot of time being amongst Americans, and their sense of justice is keen. Their faith in justice is kind of imbued in them through their constitution. Their idea that the constitution means you have a right to freedom, a right to your own life, a right to the pursuit of happiness. That's inside of them. And from a young age, Americans understand why the Supreme Court matters. And it's a conversation we never have here in the UK. Which judges are being appointed to the Supreme Court? It's not a conversation. We don't have that. But it's very much front and centre of all American elections. Who gets control of the Supreme Court? And what I'm trying to say by that is justice, therefore, is part of every person's life because they know why having control of the Supreme Court matters. And to me, that's the Elon perspective, the American perspective, what is right and what is wrong, what's okay and what is not. So, for example, all of the January 6th prisoners, that's not okay because they were thrown in prison much in the same way that Keir Starmer did after the Southport riots. Throw everyone in prison, take political prisoners, and that's not just, not in any side of the pond. But in America, justice still really stands for something. And I think that forms Elon's perspective. He can look at Tommy Robinson's case and he can see that that's not justice. You can't have a man in solitary confinement for contempt of court, and anyone who thinks otherwise is mad. And you can totally see that perspective. It is, of course, insanity that a man is in jail in solitary for contempt of court, a charge that no one has ever been jailed for historically, apart from Tommy himself. And then you have Farage's perspective. Farage has created reform. He's been consistent that he doesn't want to have anything to do with Tommy Robinson. That was true in UKIP. It's why UKIP fell apart. It's been true in reform. He's always been very clear. He doesn't want anything to do with Tommy Robinson. But park that. He has built a political party. It doesn't matter, you're going to correct me and say it's a limited company or it's a company, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Reform. Reform have the biggest membership, beating the Conservative, fact. Reform have the best chance of winning the next election if many things line up together, enough Conservative MPs defect to Reform, etc. And his aim, in my words, is to take control of number 10, to win the next election, whenever it is, hopefully sooner rather than later, in order to put the great back into Britain. And here's the brilliant thing about this, is that actually everybody wants the same thing. Elon Musk wants justice. Justice for the little girls, justice for those who are victims of these grooming gangs. Justice also for a guy imprisoned for no reason, kept in solitary for no reason, who did nothing but try and speak freely, which of course is Elon's big platform. Farage wants to get political power in order to have change in the UK. We cannot get the change we need without taking political power. It's the current system and it's the only system we've got, and reform are the best hope. And I know, because I can feel it in every bit of my makeup, I can feel the disappointment and sadness of ordinary people who were hopeful that reform could make it. And I don't want people to be disappointed or jaded or feel like that hope is lost, because it's absolutely still there. All that needs to happen is a little reset. And Tommy himself, not that I speak for him, always wants justice for the causes he cares about. And that's the really great thing, is that Tommy and Tommy's crowds and the people that turn up to rallies, they also want justice. Ordinary people like me, ordinary people want justice. We want things to be all right. We want things to be fair. I personally want British people to be at the front of the line. I want people who've paid into the system to do best out of it. I want to have our elderly able to get the healthcare they need. I want our veterans to be looked after. I want people who've worked hard to be rewarded for it, and people who are choosing not to work hard not to be rewarded. I don't want not contributing to this country to be a choice as it currently is. So those are the things I want. I want justice for hardworking British people, always have done. And the great thing here is all of that can work together. Elon can be the provider of a platform where speech can be free, and Tommy and his videos can be seen as they have been. Without X, none of that video got seen at the extent it's been seen, right? And he wants justice. Elon wants justice in that American setting, which makes perfect sense as an American, and it's why all of Britain seems completely mad. Farage is building something that can make change happen. He is building something that can put right many of the injustices that ordinary people like me feel. So in a way, Tommy and all of the people that turn up at rallies and me and other people, we can have what we want through reform. We don't have to belong to it. I offered to speak at reform. I've been kept out. I know I've been kept out. I know I'm deliberately on the ban list. I know I'm on the ban list at GB News and Talk News and all media. I'm on everyone's ban list, but it doesn't matter. I want reform to do well. I want reform to win. I want them to take the next election, because I know they can make political change happen, which will be therefore change for the people that I do sit comfortably with. And we can work in parallel. Elon providing freedom of speech and the platform and the backing and maybe financing. Nigel and his boys leading reform, taking reform forward, trying to get as many Conservative MPs to defect over to reform as is humanly possible. Very important. And they need to hold their line. And then all of us ordinary ones with Tommy doing what we do, rallying, keeping ourselves going, supporting reform, supporting each other, championing smaller causes, smaller moments, giving voice to ordinary people who wouldn't otherwise be heard. And that can be done perfectly all together. In order to achieve that, there does need to be a couple of fundamental things that are changed. It is no good to be criticising others on this team. No good to be criticising Elon, or Elon criticising Farage, or Farage criticising Tommy, or ordinary people, or us lot. We have to have discipline. It's how the military operates. It's why the military functions. It's military discipline. That has to exist. If you need to go and duke something out, rent a room, get in it, duke it out, and then leave the room and come back. There needs to be discipline. There cannot be this bizarre need to slander the other, whether that's Elon on Farage or Farage on Tommy. That's got to stop, because it doesn't help the people who need you guys. Ordinary people who need hope. It is not hopeful to watch people leading this thing smack 7 bales of crap out of each other. And if I was your mother, I would separate you 3 and tell you to think about your lives before coming back to the table. Thankfully, I'm not. But this can be a movement where we all move together. There needs to be military level discipline. I believe Nigel needs to have a reset and say, from this moment forwards, we'll hold the line. I will lead reform to take political power in the UK. I hear all of the ordinary people on the streets, all of the people forming a movement of people on the pavements. I hear you, I understand, and I'm going to make change happen. And working with Elon, we will push for freedom of speech. We will push for individual liberty, for the right to pursue happiness. That's how we win this thing. And it is not going to be by getting things confused. And it is not going to be by arguing what justice is and confusing that with leadership of a political party or one big personality or anything else. This isn't a fight about personalities. It can't be. This is about different perspectives, and this is about working together to hold the line, because we each have a role to play in that. I hope that was helpful. I will just add as a personal aside, because I think this would be true for Tommy, but I don't know. But it doesn't matter if you're not included in the top table. It doesn't matter if you're not made to feel welcome. What matters is that we have change in order to put the great back into Britain. And in order to do that, some of us need to just form an orderly line as opposed to shouting to be heard, but distracting from our common cause. I hope that helps.